Welcome to the Deficient Vegans podcast, episode 63. I'm the Muscle Deficient Vegan here with the Protein Deficient Vegan. Do you want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi, everybody. We are back with a new episode this week after taking a week or so off. So this week, we're going to talk about some of the things ethical vegetarians might not know. And then we'll also have a small bite-sized coaching segment to briefly talk about when to take your protein around workouts.
I think this is going to be a good episode because I was an ethical vegetarian.
No, yeah, you have a lot of background for this topic. And it's a topic that actually comes up quite a bit, so I'm excited to talk about it. But first up, new news.
New news.
So the first piece of news we have is about growing heme-rich animal equivalent proteins with tobacco and lettuce.
Without the carcinogens of tobacco or...
So maybe use the lettuce. I don't know. We'll keep an eye on that as this expands. But
it's still interesting.
It is interesting. So researchers at Imperial College London have found a way to engineer lettuce and tobacco to make myoglobin, which is a protein that is typically only found in animal meat.
Interesting.
And it is specifically a protein that carries heme-rich iron and things like that.
Things that taste like blood.
Right. Metallic taste, umami taste is kind of what they're talking about.
Ugh.
Now, the research isn't technically specifically for making a food product. It's just to find a way to make the myoglobin. But the idea is that that process will end up being part of some food products later on, which could help with like taste and texture for people who do like miss that meat taste or want to transition from a meat like centric diet.
I'll stick with my seitan.
Yeah. One of the benefits, though, is that it could allow for heme iron in vegan food sources, which is kind of one of the points of contention that comes up a lot when you talk about vegan nutrition.
Yeah. Because
plants only have non-heme iron, which the body can use, and it turns it into the same kind of things that iron turns into. It's just not quite as efficient, so you need more. And like if you're already anemic, being a vegan can make that kind of worse if you're not really careful with it. So it could be nice for, especially for anemics or people who are like, prone to low iron levels to have an actual heme iron source.
Yeah. If they put that in a pill, I will take that instead.
Yeah. You could also just use the little iron fish in your food in the pan. I don't know if that has like a lot of evidence behind it, if it actually works, but I see that happens a lot. Like you cook your food with a little iron fish and shards come off and you eat it.
Yeah. I haven't tried that yet.
I think a common way to use it is like soak it in soups and stuff. So you probably had a lot of that, right?
No, I don't eat soup.
Anyway, yeah, looking forward to seeing how this develops and if it ends up in some food, if it actually works out. So we'll try to keep an eye on that. Next up is a company called Vegan Cuts. You might have heard of them. It's one of those subscription box services where you sign up and they ship you something like every month. And this one is like fully vegan products typically. They recently released a protein-centered box. So you sign up for it and they ship you a lot of vegan proteins every month.
Yeah.
So what do we think about this box? You looked into it a little bit.
I have like so many thoughts on this. Okay. So first off, you're probably like, well, what do you get?
Yeah.
Well, they're calling it the 600 grams of protein box or something, or protein 600 box.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, it's 600 grams of protein.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
Okay. So it has like earth chip protein powder.
Okay.
It has some kind of vegan jerky, protein bars, and some other snacks.
Okay.
Now, knowing what you know about the cost of vegan protein foods.
Yeah.
What would you think 600 grams of those proteins would be? Like, what would you pay for that?
So maybe I'm thinking like maybe in terms of protein powder or something, maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of like $50 to $75 at the high end.
Wow. That's what I thought too. Do you want to know how much it is?
How much is it?
Okay. The regular price, $170.
$170?
$170.
Wow.
And the sale price is still $119.
$170 for a monthly box of some vegan protein food? That sounds ridiculous.
It sounds stupid as fuck. Okay, so like on sale, this is the sale price, which is highly discounted. You're getting about 5 grams of protein per dollar.
Wow.
The non-sale price leaves you with around 3.5 grams of protein per dollar.
Wow.
They're pillaging you, folks.
Yeah.
You couldn't convince me to buy this.
Yeah, I don't know why you would. I mean, the only benefit might be like if you're really trying to find new protein snack options you like. But I mean, for $170, you could just kind of go on Amazon and randomly pick things you've never tried before.
I know. And like the thing that I thought was funny is it's like Earth Chimp. Like I actually like Earth Chimp protein powder, but they have 2 flavors.
Yeah.
They have 2 whole flavors. They have chocolate and they have vanilla.
Right.
So it's not like you're getting a variety of
It's
like
exotic.
Yeah, like these aren't like interesting flavors. You're getting chocolate or vanilla It's boring. Okay.
Right. It's boring and 300% more expensive.
Yeah. No. Like, okay. So if you're willing to spend $170 on protein products every month, I have options for you.
Yeah, you can get so much.
So first off, go buy a whole container of protein powder.
Yeah.
That'll only set you back like $40.
Yeah, 2 pounds of most protein powders is like $40.
Yeah. Then you're left with like $130. Then go buy a 12-pack variety pack of your favorite protein bar brand. So that's maybe going to set you back like $25, $30. So let's say it's $30, you're left with $100. Go buy anything else that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, and then the other problem with a box like this, right? You don't get to choose what you're getting.
Oh, I know. This is always my least favorite thing about any of these boxes. I've tried like other boxes like this over time. Not even food, just like stuff. And it's like 80% of the stuff in the box I don't want.
Oh, I know. I used to be really bad about it. They had this wasn't a vegan box, but it didn't really have food. But it was called like the Fab Fit Fun Box. And it was like $50 and it was like a quarterly subscription. I don't know if it still exists. I haven't bought it for like 10 years.
Yeah.
But like it would have like a random exercise type thing and like some homeware stuff and like maybe some jewelry.
Yeah.
And honestly, the price was really good. It was like $50, but like the actual retail price of the box was like $300.
Yeah.
So I kept getting it because I was like, oh, it's such a deal.
Yeah.
But then I ended up giving almost all of it to my mom because I never liked any of the jewelry. I never liked any of the shit.
Yeah.
It's like, here you go. But it was a deal. This is not a deal.
Yeah.
They're actually like, I think the price is like higher than it would be if you went and bought all this shit individually.
Yeah.
And you also might just not like any of it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
All right.
That's my opinion. Don't fucking do it.
I think these only make sense if you like combine all the stuff and you're saving like $100. Not if you combine all the stuff and you're paying $150 extra.
And you also don't get to choose what's in the box.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What's in the box?
All right.
Not $170 worth of product. That's what's not in the box.
Yeah, so maybe skip on that one.
I would skip.
All right. But
if you need vegan protein recommendations, hit me up.
There you go. The last piece of news we have is about Chobani, the yogurt company, I guess, mostly.
Well, they make milk, too.
Okay. So they have officially discontinued their oat milk beverage line, which includes its original, vanilla, and zero sugar varieties, according to Big Bucks Vegan. So Chobani cited a lack of demand, and that they also said that any remaining cartons on store shelves are leftover inventory that won't be restocked. So if you did happen to like these, if you find a store that has some, that's the last you're going to get. So you should enjoy it.
That's sad. Yeah. Well, R.I.P. Chobani Oat Milk.
I need somebody to make a really good, like, small, like a personal size. I don't know. Well, like a chocolate milk, like an oat milk chocolate milk.
That would be good.
Yeah, I have not seen. I know there are a couple companies I think that make that, but I don't see them in stores really.
I think they also had a seasonal oat eggnog.
Yeah,
and it sounds like it's still up in the air if that's coming back this holiday season or not. So
I could see them keeping a seasonal thing.
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Chobani's coming out of stores, so all they have to do is like throw their new product up or whatever. So.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Let's get into the main topic, which is talking about what ethical vegetarians might be missing out on as far as information.
Okay. So for me, what I've seen in spaces like Reddit or really social media, there's like a really common occurrence of talking shit about vegetarians in vegan spaces. And, like, I've even seen some vegans go so far as to say that vegetarians are just as bad as omnivores.
Yeah.
Have you seen this?
I have seen that. And I've seen, like, when vegetarians come into, like, the vegan subreddit, for example, sometimes they'll ask questions and they will get pretty harassed for not really a good reason.
As someone who was a vegetarian, I personally look at vegetarians as like, pre-vegans. Like, maybe they just are missing some information. I'm not saying all of them.
Yeah.
But, like, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely still doing, like, a significant reduction in animal harm, and they're only a couple of food choices away from a vegan diet. So I don't know why we wouldn't just choose to, like, nurture that that already existing thought process and try to, like, get them over the finish line.
Exactly. So before you come at us and say there's no such thing as an ethical vegetarian, I personally thought I was an ethical vegetarian for most of my life.
Yeah.
And so this is basically why we thought it might be good to have a podcast episode that covers some of the things that, like, ethical vegetarians may not know.
Right.
Something that could, like, flip the switch into saying, oh, okay, maybe a vegetarian doesn't go as far as I want to go to reduce my harm.
Yeah. And I feel like if you do have all the information, ethical vegetarians will probably be like, oh, well, I guess I have to go all the way and be a vegan now.
Exactly.
So I know you have been you were vegetarian for a long time before becoming vegan, like since you were a kid, right?
Yeah. So if you don't want to hear my personal story, you can feel free to skip this part. But I just want to share my personal experience so you can understand why I'm using the word ethical in front of vegetarian.
Yeah.
So I stopped eating meat when I was 12. I had a history teacher in 7th grade that just like casually mentioned that he was in the Peace Corps, and he was talking about how he was in the Peace Corps in Nepal and he was vegetarian those years.
Yeah.
He wasn't currently a vegetarian. He was just saying like, I did a vegetarian stunt 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So like I went home and I was just like, what the fuck is a vegetarian? You can do that? You can like not eat animals? Like that's crazy. And there had been like several things before that kind of like had me thinking differently about eating animals in general. Like, I remember seeing my uncle had like a dead deer hanging up. And so I had this, I didn't want to eat deer meat like that. It's like Bambi, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. But there were like other things. Like there were certain foods that like really grossed me out. Things that were like closer to an animal product than like a processed product. So like steak was more disgusting to me than like ground beef.
Right.
Because it's more like visual. Like you're like, that's literally a cow. So yeah, I went home and I wrote my parents a probably pretty embarrassing note where I was like, hey, I'm not going to be eating animals anymore. And then I think I said something about like, cows have brothers and moms and sisters and aunts and uncles and friends. And like, I'm not going to eat those.
I hope they find this note in a drawer one day so we can frame it.
They were, I can't really remember their response because I was like so focused on my own revelation, right? But they were probably like, what the fuck is this?
A 12-year-old at that.
Yeah, a 12-year-old. And so, yeah, basically from that point on, I like just didn't eat animals. I was young and I thought if I didn't want animals to die for me, then I was just going to stop eating meat.
Yeah.
And then I spent the rest of my life never running into vegetarians or vegans.
Pretty rare.
Like I met a few ex-vegetarians in college, but they were like, they had grown up so I had one friend that grew up in India, and so he was vegetarian when he was in India, and then he moved to the US, and then he wasn't a vegetarian anymore. Yeah. So like that was the closest to like a vegetarian friend I ever had. Yeah,
it's just not that common. Like you were one of the 2 people who I had actually known were vegetarian. I probably come across more than ever mentioned it. But like there was one lady at work one time who I knew was a vegetarian, and you. Those are the only 2 in my whole life I've known.
No, it's hard to like just randomly meet people. Yeah. And you know, I was like in engineering school, and then I was like working at refineries and stuff. Yeah. Mostly around men, and like a higher percentage of women are vegetarians or vegans. So I just happened to never have run across any. So because of this, I actually never really thought about like the meat or dairy industry much at all. I just knew that I didn't want to cause harm to animals, so I didn't eat meat. And I will say, like, once you've done this for like a decade or so, you don't really think about it. Like, especially if you're not part of a community. Yeah. It's just kind of like, I don't eat meat. I don't ever really think about it unless it comes time to mealtime. I just tell people I'm a vegetarian and I move on with my day. Yeah. I don't really look further than that.
I think there are a lot of vegans like that too, who are just like, they're vegan, but they don't really get involved with community or talk about it or stuff like that. So it makes sense.
Yeah. And what I will say is I had met like some previous vegetarians or whatever, but I had never met a real vegan ever. So my only like opinion of vegans was like basically the propaganda that's pushed, right? Like that they're crazy. And honestly, I actually thought that they cut out like dairy and eggs for their health reasons. Right. For some reason, I thought vegetarians were like ethical vegetarians and then vegans were like health focused. Yeah. And I don't know why I thought that, but that was like what I thought. Yeah. You know, so yeah, I firmly believed that up until I became vegan, that all vegans were health focused. Yeah. Sounds stupid now, but yeah.
I think I would have thought that too, because of the stuff I had read about veganism was mostly around like the whole food plant-based diet. Yeah. Which is pretty exclusively health focused. So I think I had that association in my mind as well. It was like, okay, vegan is kind of like the whole food plant-based thing, and it's mostly for health.
And then during my first job out of college, I worked at an ethanol plant, and there were a few guys that worked there that were either like part-time farmers or had previously worked on a farm or like were raised on a farm. And I even remember asking them like, a lot, like way back, right? Like 10 years ago, asking them about like cows and like, do cows need to be milked, or like, what's the deal with cows and milking, basically? And then I remember them telling me that like cows are in pain if they don't get milked.
Yeah.
So I took that as like another sign, like I'm hearing it straight from a farmer's mouth telling me that cows feel pain if they're not milked. So like, I didn't think there was like an ethical reason to not eat milk or dairy products,
Yeah.
So I will say, after having that conversation, it stopped my curiosity for a while. Like, I didn't really think much of it.
Yeah,
I talked to a farmer.
Right. Yeah.
Done.
Checked off the box.
Checked it off. And then almost 6 years ago now, I started randomly like just wondering about the dairy industry again. And I think it was more of like, man, I love cheese. I was like addicted to cheese. It was like every snack that I was obsessed with was like cheese based. And so I think I really wanted to just like quit my cheese addiction for like health reasons, not really like an ethical reason.
Yeah.
But I decided I was going to read the book Eating Animals a couple of days before the new year, and then I was going to try Veganuary. And I stupidly thought Eating Animals was just going to be about like it reinforcing why I was vegetarian.
Right.
I actually didn't think there was going to be anything about the dairy industry at all.
Yeah.
There's
a lot in there about that.
There's a lot about the dairy industry and the egg industry, and I read that book, and I read it in like 2 days. My mind changed overnight. Yeah, I was just like trying to satisfy my curiosity of like, am I missing something? But I was going to try Veganuary anyway.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I was going to try it for like maybe a couple months or something. But after reading that book, I was like, oh no, like this is it. Like I am a vegan now.
Yeah.
Like overnight. So I chased the book Eating Animals with Cowspiracy documentary for like good measure, and then a couple other documentaries. I was like,
opinion, right?
Yeah, I'm like, and I'm like, my cheese addiction was strong.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna have to brainwash myself out of wanting to eat cheese.
Yeah.
And people say that like cheese addictions are real, and like if you're super into cheese and then you go vegan, like maybe just don't eat cheese or vegan cheese for like a month.
Yeah.
I went straight to vegan cheese. It was fine.
Yeah.
But like there were things I had honestly never even thought about because I was like living in my own cognitive dissonance that not eating meat was doing everything I needed to do to like not harm animals.
Right.
And I believe like all the lies and propaganda that the meat and dairy industries push so hard. And it was kind of interesting when I read Eating Animals because I actually hadn't known any of the welfare concerns around the meat industry either. Basically, like I went into vegetarianism from the perspective of like, I don't want to kill animals. I don't want animals to die for me.
Yeah.
Never thought about the welfare issues.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, okay, I wouldn't eat a cow. I also wouldn't eat like a deer that was killed in the woods.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just a lot more simple version. You didn't even need all the other information.
I didn't even need the other information. It was just like, I don't want animals dying for me.
Yeah.
So like reading Eating Animals really opened my eyes. The factory farming is horrific. And I had no idea. Like I was vegetarian that I didn't see through any of the meat propaganda either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I had never really looked into it because it was like, well, I'm not eating it. Why do I need to know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like reading that book and watching some of the documentaries, it was like, wow. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think part of that is like, I made the decision to not eat animals so young that like, I didn't know any of that. Like I made the decision to not eat animals from like a child's perspective of like, I just don't want animals to die for me.
Yeah. Not
from like having information.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the whole thing was like pretty shocking to be honest. Like, it made me a lot more aggressive when I said I was vegan.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like not a wishy-washy vegetarian, but like I didn't really put my foot down when people would like, oh, why are you vegetarian? Yeah. I never wanted to have awkward conversations about it. So like sometimes if I knew someone was going to get weird with me, I would even be like, I just don't like the way meat tastes. Mm-hmm. That was never the reason for me. It never was. It's just like I'm living in Memphis and there are a bunch of good old boys asking me why I don't eat animals.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I just don't want to have awkward conversations. But after reading that book, it's like I don't really shy away from that kind of shit anymore because I know the stakes now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it also like opened my eyes to the dairy and egg industry.
There's a lot of the book is great. We just covered it in our book club in the Deficient Vegans Discord. But there's a lot in there about a bunch of different facets of animal agriculture. So like the dairy, the meat, the like you were just talking about the eggs. Like there are a lot of different things going on, and they all have their own kind of really fucked up processes, things like that. So.
And honestly, I guess like as someone who thought they were doing the most they could, I just felt like stupid for not knowing that kind of stuff.
And I think if you didn't know those things, there are probably a lot of other people who don't know those things as vegetarians, you know?
Yeah. And if they don't know, then they can't change. But if they did know, they might change. So sorry for like the long, drawn out personal story. I just wanted to explain like why we're doing this episode. And hopefully it'll help change the minds of some like well-intentioned vegetarians that maybe just don't know like the full grasp of what's happening in the dairy and egg industries.
Right. And just to reinforce, like people are vegetarian for what they believe to be ethical reasons and consider themselves ethical vegetarians. Like it is a real thing.
Yeah.
Just maybe it's, a little bit of missing knowledge or something like that, but those people do exist.
Yeah. So, I would say if you're already vegan and you're listening to this and you're like, I don't really know what I'm going to get out of this, I guess what I would say is hopefully what you get out of it is to be a little kinder to vegetarians you run across because they might just be completely ignorant to all this information because I was.
Right.
And I genuinely thought I was doing a good job. And I just had never run into a vegan. Yeah. Like, I just think my life would have been way different had I met a vegan in college or something that, like, gave me this information. And it's just not something that you run into unless you're looking for it most of the time. So.
Right. And you probably wouldn't have received the information very well if you, like, went online and talked to a vegan community or you talked to a vegan and they were just an asshole to you. So
I mean, yeah. It's just beating someone over the head and telling them they're a piece of shit is not like great for winning them to your side.
We need to reread How to Win Friends and Influence People. I don't think that's in there.
Yeah, I just think it turns people off. So,
so before we get into what specifically is being missed potentially by vegetarians, let's talk about why the information is being missed.
Yeah.
So for things like meat, especially products like steak, pork chops, things like that, where there is minimal processing, it's really easy to identify that was like an animal's body. It's literally a slab of animal muscle, basically.
Yeah. I think that's why, even as a kid, that kind of stuff really grossed me out. Like, I remember being like really disgusted by specifically steak and pork chops.
Yeah.
Because it's just right there.
Yeah.
And I have met people that aren't vegan or vegetarian, and they just have very weird hangups on, like I knew someone at work that she had a weird hangup on, like, chicken. She just didn't like, she said sometimes she would be eating it, it would be too obvious for her that it was chicken. And it would just gross her out. And I'm just kind of like, okay, well,
right.
Sounds like you should look into veganism.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like with something like that, it's kind of hard to hide the source of the food, right? Like it's obvious that it's meat. It's obvious it comes from an animal.
It's obvious they had to die for it to exist on your plate.
Yeah, exactly. But with things that aren't meat, like, or aren't even like minimally processed meat, like dairy, eggs, honey, maybe even like you were saying, ground beef sometimes, a little bit detached. It's a lot easier to kind of ignore what happens to the animal.
Right. And I think it's like, okay, so if it's a steak, you can't really be tricked into thinking like, oh, well, the cow's fine because the cow's dead in front of me. But like if you see a glass of milk and you're under like the falsities of the propaganda, right? It's like maybe you look at the carton and you see like the nice little carton label and you just think, oh, it's just like a nice little cow that was frolicking in the field, like just had a little bit of leftover milk for me to drink. Right? Like you can almost buy into that because that's what they show you in commercials.
Right. Yeah, what you don't see is that the cow has to be basically constantly kept pregnant to keep producing milk. Like they end up getting the cow pregnant about once a year in most dairy operations to have the cow effectively continuously producing milk, other than like the 2-month kind of rest period every year.
Yeah, and I would say like when you see an egg, maybe you're thinking of like your weirdo neighbor that has a couple of chickens that regularly cross the street and shit in your driveway. We had that. Like at our house, there was like the guy across the street who had chickens and geese. And we would just like, sometimes we'd wake up in the morning and there was just like bird shit like all over our driveway.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's like, I guess why did the chicken cross the road? To shit on our driveway. But like, you don't think about how 99% of all chickens are kept, right?
Yeah.
And you also don't think about the fact that male chickens born to laying hens are killed.
You also see like commercials of cows being happy and in the grass and just assume that that's how they live all the time because they aren't dying for your cheese.
But yeah, it's a lot easier for your brain to assume what they want you to assume.
Right.
when you're not eating a corpse.
Yeah.
I mean, I think is the big piece.
Yeah. And I think, the dairy and egg industries spend a lot of money to make you feel like the products are just a natural part of life, and that as a vegetarian, you're consuming something that would just naturally be there anyway. And it's like almost like a byproduct.
I always thought of it as a byproduct.
Yeah. And those things are created while the animal is alive, but that doesn't mean that it's like a happy animal, right?
Right. Where I think they get you is like where you have meat, which is basically proof of death. You have eggs and dairy and cheese, and that's almost proof of life in a way.
Yeah.
Like they had to be alive to make this. And I think that's like why it's so insidious.
Yeah, that's interesting. The industries also like to use unfamiliar words. So if you're solely looking at information provided by them, you might not fully understand what those things mean. They like soften the language, tone it down so it sounds, nicer, basically.
Yeah.
More palatable. Some of those are what they say breeding, really typically means artificial insemination.
Yeah. Or the one that really rubs me the wrong way is culling.
Yeah.
Which literally just means like mostly slaughtering or killing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it could mean removing from flock or herd, but almost all the times it means killing.
Yeah. There's also a spent hen, which is a hen whose egg production is no longer profitable, so they got to go
to slaughter.
And then also depopulation, which is killing an entire flock or a group of livestock. Typically, that's done for disease control.
Yeah, but I mean, breeding, culling, spent hen, depopulation, if you didn't know what those meant, it just doesn't seem as bad as what they mean.
Yeah, I think it's especially easy to never learn these things if you went vegetarian solely because you didn't want animals to die for you, period.
Yeah, which is kind of what I was saying is like, for me, I didn't need to hear how they were treated because that part never mattered to me. You know what I mean? Like, even if they were treated nice, I was never going to eat the animal. So it was almost like, it feels like selfish to not look into that information. But for me, it was like I was already very, very sensitive to like animal harm in general, right? Because that's why I went vegetarian. So it's like, why would I go like traumatize myself learning like how they were treated? I can just, it doesn't, because the conditions don't matter to a lot of vegetarians. It doesn't matter if they have the most fulfilling life and die a natural death. They're not going to eat them. So you just might not look into it.
Yeah. And then, there are also a lot of vegetarians who are vegetarian because of religious reasons, and dairy is an important part of their culture. I think India is the one that comes up mostly for this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, in India, they're actually sacred.
Yeah. And that's, maybe a little different than a lack of information, but they might still consider themselves an ethical vegetarian because they're doing it for religious reasons, which to that person is pretty deeply tied to their ethics. So let's get into the main two things that might change your mind if you are an ethical vegetarian, or if you know an ethical vegetarian or somebody who's maybe even just a vegetarian in general. You can share this information with them and maybe they think a little more closely about becoming a vegan.
And I will say there are more reasons than this to go from vegetarian to vegan.
Yeah.
But like from a personal perspective, these are the two that completely changed my way of thinking.
Okay. The first one is milk production.
Yeah. So somehow I was completely oblivious to the fact that the cow would need to be pregnant and have already given birth to produce milk.
You know what's crazy is I've never really thought about this either.
I know.
And I mean, I guess because... And I even had some conversations online about this recently, but people tend to think, and it's what I thought, that like a cow gets pregnant at some point and then you just milk it as long as you want and it doesn't have to get pregnant again. That's not how it works. And I don't know why I thought that.
I never even thought the cow needed, this sounds so stupid. This is like honestly embarrassing as a woman, but like it never even really occurred to me the cow would need to get pregnant. It was just like cows make milk.
Yeah, that's
right?
just what cows do.
Yeah.
And I thought that in some ways as well. Like I never really considered that they were pregnant, but I definitely didn't think they were becoming like intentionally impregnated.
Over and over and over again.
Like, udders. Like, all they ever show udders do is making milk. So I thought, cows are just some kind of animal that makes milk.
And I think they get you because like cartoons, TV, movies, they never show a baby cow in the picture.
Yeah.
It's always just a human milking the mother cow.
Yeah.
Right? So like in my brain, I just always thought the cows had milk, which is fucking stupid. I just thought it was like a special cow thing.
I also thought the same stupid thing. So it's definitely
I don't know why there's that. Yeah.
And I feel like there are millions of other people who just think cows produce milk.
Which is insane. Yeah. So 75% of all cows are farmed in the U.S. dairy and beef are included in this number, are factory farmed. So any idea you had of like happy dairy cows, like frolicking through the land, and like you're purchasing their happy dairy products, that's a lie.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and it's funny because this comes up so much in conversations. It's like, oh, well, what if I'm getting my milk from my own cow or my local farmer? And it's like, I don't like that conversation is almost irrelevant to me because almost nobody, I don't know the percentages, right? But like very few people are getting their milk that way.
Not all of it. I think here's where that kind of falls apart for me is like if you're going the small farm route, it's like, are you never eating out?
Right.
Are you never buying processed products from the grocery store? Because
that have milk in them.
Yeah, those are not quote unquote ethically sourced dairy.
Right.
I don't think there is an ethical dairy.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who's counting small farms as ethical, the stuff you're getting at a restaurant is not that. The stuff you're buying at the grocery store is not that.
Yeah. I would say probably for most omnivores, like the milk in the carton that you're buying is probably like on the lower end of your total dairy consumption. Between, like cheeses and products that have milk and yogurts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like all
milk's
that stuff,
in everything.
All that stuff comes from factory farms. So like the carton of milk you get from your neighbor with a happy cow, I don't know. It's still they still have to impregnate the cow, so there's still like some obviously ethical concerns there. But even in that scenario, that like bottle of milk you get is a really small percentage of your total dairy intake. Unless
you're making your own butter, cheese, yogurt. Yeah, come on.
And again, maybe there are people out there doing that, but it's an extremely, vanishingly small number of people.
Yeah. So I think we should cover why, even if you're buying from a small farm, it's still maybe not great. Yeah. So dairy cows are usually around 15 months old when they're determined to be large enough to safely carry a pregnancy. And the majority of all dairy cows are artificially inseminated.
Right.
Do you know how that works? Would you like me to tell you?
I would like you to tell me how that
Okay, first off, I posted this on my Instagram, and I had many being like 4 or 5 people, but it's annoying. It's enough that it's annoying.
Well, if 5 people said it, 100 people thought it. So.
Yeah. There have been several people that think I don't understand how female reproductive systems work.
You have one of those, right?
I do. Okay. So when I tell you that a technician is inserting their hand up a cow's rectum, believe that I have researched this.
Rectum is butthole, right? That's not where you make babies from.
That's what they said before Googling. So let me tell you how cows are artificially inseminated.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so a technician inserts their hand and pretty much their entire forearm up the cow's rectum or butthole to locate and hold the cervix from underneath.
Right.
Then with their other hand, they're holding a semen gun, which is inserted into the vulva and guided through the cervix and into the body of the uterus.
Yeah.
Can you even fathom how invasive that is?
Oh, that sounds insane.
Okay. So just like, I'm reading this thinking, wow, that's fucking crazy. So they do artificial insemination for humans, right? You know, like for fertility and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so imagine if when you went in, they fisted your asshole.
God.
To find your cervix from underneath and hold it in place. And then they shot a semen gun up your other hole. Like, that's what's happening here.
Science.
It's incredibly invasive. And so obviously I dug more into this. And apparently the reason they do it like this, because you wouldn't normally go that far up into the uterus, right? I was like, holy shit, why are they going all the way to the uterus? But apparently they do that because semen is really expensive and it's like more effective, efficient, whatever, if they go all the way up because they're cheap assholes.
They got to make sure it hits the target.
Yeah. So let's be like as invasive, as brutal, traumatizing as possible so that we don't have to spend a couple more dollars on semen or whatever. I don't know how much semen is. Yeah. But also, who's jerking off the bull?
That is a job.
That's gross. I'm sorry. If your job is jerking off a bull, that's fucking weird.
That probably falls under the technician.
The technician. Anyways, so yeah, like their whole fucking forearm goes up the cow's butt. Yeah, I don't know. I just sit with that. That one gave me pause. Mostly because it's just like, Jesus Christ. Like the whole thing is like awful, but like that just seems like so extra invasive.
Yeah.
It's like just so, I don't know. dehumanizing. I mean, I know they're not humans, but like it just feels so like, wow, we just like couldn't have made this worse, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, so then after they're artificially inseminated, the cows are pregnant for 9 months.
Right.
And then after giving birth, they're typically artificially inseminated again in 60 to 90 days. I mean, their gestation period is similar to humans.
Yeah.
This would be like if you got pregnant every year.
Yeah, I mean, that is what it is. Yeah.
It's just nuts. I think the whole thing is just nuts.
Yeah.
Right? And then the
reason they do that is because, like, technically you can milk a cow for a while, maybe up to 2 years or something, but the milk production goes down a lot.
Right.
So they impregnate them every year so that, like, the flow of the milk is higher so that they make more profit.
Yeah, all of this is around, like, efficiency.
Yeah.
Money efficiencies. Like, where can we get the most money out of this? Like, and it's the same way with, I think we've talked about in a few other episodes of, like, when they decide they're going to slaughter an animal.
Yeah.
It's like, when do we reach this, like, point where they're not going to gain weight as quickly for the amount of food, and then, like, that's when we kill them.
Yeah.
And that's how they do it with this. Like, when is a cow dried up, right? Like, that doesn't mean they can't produce milk. It just means that they're not getting as much money as they'd like.
Right. Yeah.
So the other thing is that dairy cows have been genetically bred to overproduce milk.
And that actually is where some of that, like you were talking about the farmers you talked to said that, like, cows hurt if they don't get milk.
Yeah.
That is technically true, but it's because they've been bred to overproduce. And you know, they're in this situation where they're constantly pregnant, they're having milk. Like, if you just didn't get a cow pregnant, it's not going to hurt,
right?
Obviously. But if a cow is lactating and they've been bred to overproduce milk, then they're kind of like bursting basically, and they do want to be milked. But that's because of the circumstance that we put them in the first place.
Right. Like, humans are solving the problems humans are creating.
Right.
That doesn't mean we're good.
But at the same time, that allows for that talking point of, like, oh, cows need to be milked or they'll be in pain.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, well, that's really disingenuous.
It's hiding the reason why.
Exactly.
It's just fucked up.
Yeah.
So then the other thing is baby cows are almost immediately separated from their mother after they give birth. Because even though the cows are being genetically bred to overproduce milk, they still want to limit how much the baby cow drinks.
Right.
Because they want to sell more of it to humans.
Right. And just a reminder, humans are not baby cows. We don't need the milk.
So baby cows are given about half of the milk that they would normally consume in nature for their body weight, just so that they can start eating solid food faster, which can lead to distress and, like, poor health outcomes.
Of course it does, because we can't do anything that would make an animal just be happy.
We can't do anything. It's just so annoying to me, because it's like... you, like, genetically bred the mother to be able to produce, like, so much more milk than she would ever need to feed the baby. Why can't you just let the baby be with the mom and drink the milk they need? It's just, the whole thing is really sad and frustrating.
Yeah. So once the babies are born, they are sexed, which will determine their fate afterwards. So female calves will be used in the dairy industry, just like their mothers. Male calves can be used for a number of different things because they can't produce milk like the female calves will eventually be able to do. So their path kind of deviates. What happens to male dairy calves is largely based on where they are born and kind of the economics around raising them, and maybe even, like, what kind of business lines that farm is in, something like that. Some of them are sent to feedlots and sold as meat. Some of them are sold to make veal, and a veal calf is raised to about 16 to 18 weeks of age.
I feel like when we're measuring lifespan in weeks, you're making me very sad.
Yeah. And veal calves also kept in confinement, very small crates for, like, their entire short life. Like, they're specifically just bred to be a 18-week-old slaughter, basically. And then some of the calves are killed right after being sexed because it's just not economical for that operation to raise them for meat at all.
Just as a reminder, the natural lifespan of a dairy cow would be about 25 years.
Yeah.
So, like, the veal calf is 16 to 18 weeks of age, and the female dairy cows usually live to around 3 to 7 years.
Yeah.
Depending on, when they become uneconomical.
Right. And, we say they only live around 3 to 7 years. That's because they are culled or killed, right?
Yes.
Because they would live up, maybe potentially up to 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So at the end, when dairy cows are no longer able to produce as much milk as the farmers would like, they do slaughter them and they sell off the meat for either ground beef or pet food. So that's why if you are consuming dairy, you are participating in this. You are giving your money to fund this. You don't get to participate in the eating of cheese and not also be responsible for the creation of veal and cows dying.
Right. Or even if they aren't dying, they aren't slaughtered, they're, in like terrible conditions.
Yeah.
They still live a fraction of their natural lifespan. So, I mean, either way, it's a bad deal for the animal.
It's incredibly unethical.
Yeah. So the second major topic that, might make you think differently as a vegetarian is egg production. Since dairy and eggs are kind of the two things that vegetarians still keep around, those are the ones we're kind of talking about.
Yeah. So the chickens of yesteryear, like red jungle fowl, only produce about 12 eggs per year.
Yeah.
That's important because chickens of today have been genetically bred to produce 250 to 300 eggs per year.
That's insane.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you know there were two types of chickens?
I read that in Eating Animals.
But did you know before?
Oh, no, I never knew that before.
I didn't either. So like as a vegetarian, I think, I guess basically what I thought was happening is that boy and girl chickens were both being raised.
Right.
And then, like, they both had some, I didn't know really what the lifespan was. But, like, before they were killed for meat, I just assumed the egg laying was a byproduct of them being alive.
Okay, yeah.
Is that what you thought?
I guess I never really thought about it much. Yeah, I guess I would have thought that the chickens that laid the eggs were the same chickens that ended up as meat.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's basically what I thought. So in my mind, it was like eating eggs isn't causing more chickens to die because, like, basically the chickens that were going to die anyways are just laying eggs. And it was, like, pretty inconsequential to the whole thing.
Yeah.
It is how I guess I had thought of it if I'm trying to think back to my pre-vegan brain.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, now, knowing everything I know about how like factory farming works, it definitely makes sense that there are like optimized breeds for the different things.
Yeah.
But no, I never considered that before I was a vegan.
Yeah, and I think this is how they hide a lot of stuff, right? I think this is kind of another thing where it's like the cartoons just always showed that like chickens are laying eggs, or like I also think, you and I both like Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only show I ever watched where there's ever a chicken in question, like a real chicken in question, is Survivor. Because it's like something that happens, not every season, but some seasons they'll win a chicken for the tribe that wins a challenge or something. And then it's like, it comes down to they give you food for the chicken. And the intent is you would feed the chicken and you would get eggs.
Right.
But like then some crazy asshole on the tribe is like, no, let's kill the chicken and eat it. Right. So like, I guess in my mind that also like kind of reinforced it, where it's like, it's the question of like chicken or egg.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The age-old question.
The age-old question of chicken or egg. No, but like, I guess I just thought the eggs were like just a byproduct of the meat industry.
Yeah.
So I think that was something that was really eye-opening for me when I read Eating Animals, because they introduced the concepts of layers and broilers, which I had no idea. They were like two types of chickens that are in entirely different pats, right?
Yeah.
And like they don't get switched. It's just like layers stay in the laying egg space and the broilers stay for the meat.
Right.
And so like you can't cross.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
it's just not efficient anymore.
You would never pull a female broiler chicken and use her for the egg industry.
Right.
Just like you would never...
Because they wouldn't lay that many eggs.
They wouldn't be... Yeah, exactly. And you would never pull a layer chicken over to the meat industry because they
don't
just...
get very big.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just thought this part was kind of crazy. This was like a real big what the fuck moment for me when I was reading the book.
As you can imagine, a 20 to 30 time increase in a chicken's egg production comes with some consequences.
Yeah, and something maybe you hadn't thought of. So something that I didn't know is that eggs have a lot of calcium, the shell at least, right?
Yeah.
And so that calcium has to come from somewhere. It's obviously going to come from the chicken.
Yeah, I never really considered that like they have to basically 3D print an egg out of calcium.
So every time a chicken lays an egg, they have to mobilize 2 grams of calcium to form the eggshell. That's like a lot, right?
That's kind of a lot, yeah.
So, and then if you're doing this every day, that becomes a lot.
Yeah.
So that's the equivalent of 10% of the total calcium in the chicken's entire skeleton that must be replenished daily.
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 Yeah.
So this can cause them to develop a severe form of osteoporosis with a high incidence of bone fractures. You may have heard of like, well, why can't I eat my backyard chicken's eggs? Maybe you have a rescue chicken that was rescued from factory farms. Well, if they're producing eggs daily and they're not like reabsorbing that calcium,
Right.
that's a problem.
Because, chickens will sometimes eat the shell of the eggs to get some of that calcium back.
Right, exactly. So I think that's why if you've ever been on like Debate a Vegan subreddit or Ask a Vegan a Question, I can't remember what the...
I think it's
Ask Vegan.
Ask a Vegan?
Yeah. Sometimes people come in and be like, well, why can't I eat my own backyard chicken eggs? It's a rescue. This is why. Like, you should let the chicken probably eat their own egg back to replenish their calcium.
So eggshell calcium comes primarily from the diet through like normal intestinal absorption, but approximately 25 to 40% of the calcium comes from the bones through reabsorption.
Which is crazy. Yeah, I read that at least 85% of caged chickens have bone fractures at least once during their lifetime.
Yeah, it's a very high prevalence of some kind of bone fracture.
And, like, just a reminder of what are laying chickens doing? They're not, like, jumping on trampolines. Right. They're just, like,
standing there.
Standing. Yeah. Like, the fact that they're having fractures at all is kind of nuts because they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
That would be like you just standing at your desk and somehow ending up with a broken leg.
Yeah.
Your bones have to be very weak for something like that to happen, you know?
So some of the characteristics of osteoporosis in a chicken and its effects on egg production and health include reduced egg production and shell quality. So maybe the eggs don't come out whole, basically. Increased bone loss, degradation of bone microstructure, which is how they end up breaking. Bone fragility and fracture rates, which we just talked about. And then, osteoporosis leading to potentially paralysis or even death. It could get so bad.
Yeah, so even in the circumstance where, like, a layer chicken gets to just live to old age, it's not a good life.
Yeah.
And I was also reading that, especially in factory farming, which is, I think, 99% of all chickens globally, or at least in the U.S., they do a lot of weird stuff with lighting to make them think they're having, like, 2 days in one day so that they lay more.
Yeah, the weird day-night cycle manipulation.
Yeah, which can cause them to be, like, aggressive and have a whole bunch of, like, mental health issues.
Yeah.
They're not living good lives, And then some other issues that can come from excessively laying eggs. Large eggs can be difficult to pass, which can be painful. It can cause tears in the reproductive tract or lead to egg binding.
And egg binding is where an egg basically gets stuck in the reproductive tract, and if they don't get it out, they can die.
Yeah.
Or it can cause serious issues, but they can die.
Yeah, and sometimes when a hen attempts to lay a too large egg or is new to laying, the internal parts of the reproductive tract can be pushed outside of the body.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty horrible.
Also, the pelvic muscles associated with frequent laying or passing large eggs can get loose, allowing fecal material to enter the reproductive tract and cause bacterial infection of salpingitis.
Yeah. Up to 35% of hens develop ovarian cancer by the time they're 2.5 years old.
That's actually nuts.
It's really sad because in nature, hens can live up to 6 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So they're developing ovarian cancer before they're like even a third of the way through their lifespan naturally.
But they typically will only live in these factory farms for 18 to 24 months because they are slaughtered when their egg production is too low and sold for like lower value meat products like soups, canned chicken, or again, pet food.
Yeah. Since layer chickens aren't economical to raise for meat in most of the world, all male layer chickens are killed within hours of being sexed.
Yeah.
Which means like finding out if they're male or female. We've been using this word, but that's just what that means.
That's the industry term.
Yeah.
So some countries have recently passed bans on chick culling, which is like when the egg hatches, they sex the chick and they determine it's a male and then they kill it. So that's chick culling. Germany and France banned that in 2022. Italy has a ban that phases in by the end of 2026 this year. But even in those cases, the way they're doing it there is that the eggs are destroyed pre-hatch once they're determined to be male by a process called in ovo sexing, which is like just a procedure to determine what sex the chick is inside the egg. And I think some ways to do it are like feather colors or some other things like that.
So about 6.5 to 7 billion male chicks are killed globally each year. 6.5 to 7 billion every year.
Yeah.
I just think that number is pretty alarming.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, it just shows like the scale of how they're not even really considered to be living things. It's just a commodity. So.
Yeah, because they're not even being used for anything either. Is like the other thing is like they're just being killed.
Yeah.
You know, so there's basically two methods used for killing day-old chicks in the egg industry. The first is mechanical destruction, known as maceration, but it's basically a blender, essentially, or a grinder. The chicks are instantaneously killed either using rapidly rotating blades or instantaneously crushed using interlocking rollers, which is really, really sad.
Yeah. And then the other option is gas killing with carbon dioxide or argon gas, typically.
You know, I actually had my physics teacher in high school. I don't think he was vegetarian. I think he was like a reducitarian, but there wasn't a word for that then. But either way, he was a chemical engineer.
Yeah.
The first chemical engineer I'd ever met in real life, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways, I had him for physics in high school, and he had worked at some kind of a lab where they were testing on mice. And this is also how they will kill like test mice, like throw them in a blender or whatever. But that was like so shocking and upsetting to him that he quit that job and became a high school teacher.
Yeah.
Even with a chemical engineering degree.
I had a similar, one of the guys I worked with was a biologist, and he was in biology, but he literally said he got tired of having to put chicks in a blender and decided to get into IT. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a mental toll even for the humans who have to do this kind of thing.
Yeah. I remember my teacher, shout out Mr. Giles, helped me get out of pig dissections and stuff for my biology class because he was like very kind to me. I was like the only vegetarian in my entire high school. And I remember going to him and being, because he had told the story in class or whatever, and like how he had left or whatever. And I was like, please, is there any way like you can help me not have to dissect this pig? Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And he talked to the biology teacher and got me out of it. But
I think I saw a story just last week on that, by the way. I think it was from PETA maybe, but somebody's developed a like fully synthetic pig dissection thing.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That
was traumatizing because I was in some kind of like a advanced class in middle school, and we had to go watch we had to do like fetal pig dissection day in 8th grade, and it was like very, very, very traumatic for me.
Yeah.
So when they were like, oh, you're gonna have to do this in high school too, I was like, nah, I'm literally not doing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, he got me out of all my dissections.
Yeah.
Because like at the time they didn't have anything like that.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big deal to get me out of it. So anyways. Yeah, he had seen too much. Either one of these, it's like, why are we throwing little baby chickens into a blender? I just think like, to me, right? Like if you had told me this when I was vegetarian, that like, because I'm eating eggs, because I want eggs in the morning, little baby chickens are being torn and tossed into a blender, that would have stopped me right there.
Yeah.
Like that's all I would have had to have heard, you know? I just had never heard this.
Yeah.
It's just upsetting.
Yeah. And it's just like a information gap. Like it's not something that ever gets really talked about. You have to kind of go look into this kind of thing if you don't work in this industry.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's just like you never even would consider that this was being done. So.
Yeah. I actually posted about this last week, and I had some lady on Facebook call me a fucking moron and said that she was a vet and a farmer or something. And she was like, this isn't true. This doesn't exist. And I'm like,
this doesn't exist, but 3 countries just passed rules banning it. Okay.
Yeah. I was like, I mean, I assume she never got back to me, but I'm like assuming you worked on a small farm. If you're listening, no, I'm just kidding. She's not listening. But like, I assume she worked on a small farm or something, or it only worked in small farm spaces. And it's like, yeah, well, maybe they don't do this on the small farm, or maybe they only get female chicks on the small farm and you're never dealing with like the reproduction pieces of it.
Right. And if you're not driven by like a huge like profit drive, maybe you don't care if you have a bunch of male chicks running around the farm. I don't know. So you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
But,
or maybe you're only buying the female chicks.
Yeah.
So you never know what happens to the male chicks.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of arguments that revolve around like this idealized small farm thing. And I know there are small farms. It's just that's That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's not how almost anybody gets their food, their milk, their eggs, whatever. I know eggs are food, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I just thought it was shocking that I had somebody like basically weaponize her farm experience. And it's like, I can send you many, many, many articles on this. This is like a real thing. There are 6.5 billion male chickens destroyed every year. I would say, like, if you're consuming eggs and you don't want to be paying for this to happen, you should stop consuming eggs.
Yeah. So some questions to ask, maybe even if you shop locally and somehow manage to avoid factory farms altogether, which again is extremely hard to do, you should still be asking some of these questions.
Yeah. Like, how is milk production initiated and maintained? Meaning, how are your cows getting pregnant? How often are you impregnating your cows? Are the cows separated from their calves after giving birth?
What happens to the male calves?
Yeah.
What happens to surplus female calves?
Is pain relief used for debudding and castration?
What happens when one of your cows' production or fertility declines? And then, on the chicken side, where do spent hens and unwanted roosters go?
Yeah. It's like, even if the cows or chickens are having a good, quote unquote, good life, what happens when they become unproductive and unprofitable? Do you let them die of old age on your farm? If you don't do that, you consuming dairy or eggs from a small farm is contributing to those animals dying.
Yeah.
There's really...
way earlier than they were supposed to.
Oh, yeah. Way, way faster. And there's no way around that. And then, a question that comes up all the time, and we kind of covered this a little bit, but why aren't backyard eggs ethical? And this one comes up in vegan spaces almost constantly.
Yeah. And, logically, if you think about it, it's like, okay, well, if I have a backyard chicken, I'm not doing any of this crazy shit to this chicken that you're talking about. So what's the problem?
Yeah. And so I think if you have a backyard chicken, or if someone you know of is a backyard chicken and you're buying eggs from their backyard chicken, so some of the things you could ask is, were the hens purchased from a hatchery that also produces unwanted males? And I think that answer is always going to be yes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, just like humans, there's like a 50% chance it's a boy and it's a 50% chance it's a girl.
Yeah.
So what happens to their brothers?
Right.
What happens to these backyard chickens when they stop laying eggs?
Yeah. You just have a pet chicken now?
Do you? Do you have an unproductive pet chicken that you're feeding?
Yeah.
I think most of these places, that's probably not the case.
Yeah.
Will
they receive veterinary care throughout their lives? Like, you actually paying a vet to take care of this chicken like you would maybe a dog or a cat?
Yeah. Because it's not even just like, once they become unproductive with egg laying, are you letting them live? It's also like, are you keeping them healthy?
Right.
Are they being kept as family members or primarily as production units?
Yeah.
Is their worth and value depending on how many eggs they produce?
And then could the eggs potentially be fed back to the hens when they need additional protein or calcium? Like, if a vet tells you that they need that, are you willing to just let the chickens eat those eggs back?
Right. And I think that's the big one, because it's like, okay, like, let's say that you have rescued a hen from a factory farm. And it's like, yeah, well, they're going to produce like these crazy number of eggs.
Right, because it's bred for that.
Are you willing to let that hen eat the eggs back when it wants to?
Right.
Or are you keeping the chicken because of what it can do for you? You know what I mean? Like, I just think, like, when you have a dog, you're not keeping a dog or a cat for like, what can it do for me personally?
Right.
Other than like emotional support, right? But like, it's not producing. They're not producing anything for you.
Yeah.
You're not getting any kind of like gratification for like keeping them fed. I guess the real question is, are you keeping the chicken because you want the eggs or because you want a chicken?
Right.
So yeah, those are my thoughts on the ethicalness of eggs.
What comes first in your mind, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to kind of recap some of the questions / arguments you might hear that we've talked about here. So the first one is like, nobody dies for milk, right? So dairy cows are slaughtered when they leave production or the production drops, and calves created by the dairy system may enter veal or beef production, which obviously they are slaughtered for that as well.
Yeah. So somebody does die for milk.
And not to mention, the dairy cow itself's lifespan is significantly artificially shortened. So even if they aren't, producing calves that are killed, the dairy cow itself will be killed way before its natural lifespan.
Yeah. And the killing is a byproduct of your demand for dairy production,
Right.
not the other way around.
Right.
Other one is the calf doesn't need all that milk. Well, that is semi-true, because modern day dairy cows have been bred with to produce an extremely high volume of milk. that doesn't mean that the calf doesn't eat anything.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't mean that they aren't like separating the calf.
Right. It's like we said earlier, like you're saying the calf doesn't need all that milk, but then they're taking the calf away when it only consumes about half the milk that it would normally.
Right.
So it's not like the calf's getting, because when you say the calf doesn't need all that milk, you're making it sound like the calf gets everything it needs and then I take the extra.
But that's not happening.
That's not what's happening.
Yeah. And I think it's also skirting around the point of the fact that we as humans have bred cows to produce excess milk. And that has like health complications and stuff too, right? Like we created the problem where there's excess milk.
Also, something you might hear is male chicks can just be raised for chicken. Well, the male chicks in this scenario are layer breed male chicks, which are not economical to grow for meat because they won't get nearly as big. So they're considered basically inefficient for conventional meat production, and they're not used for that. And the next one is, but the eggs are unfertilized, which is correct, but the hen was produced by a hatchery system that also hatches or identifies unwanted males, and then the hen herself will eventually be removed from production.
And by removed from production, we do mean slaughtered.
Right.
The next one is like cage-free eggs solve the problem. Mm-hmm. That can reduce the movement restriction of the cages, but that doesn't actually give them much space. And it still doesn't like negate all of the other issues around having to slaughter the male baby chickens and slaughtering the female hen that is laying all of these eggs at the end of their productive lifespan, right?
Yeah, and again, we've talked about before, like cage-free for chickens does not mean like free-roaming chicken. So
yeah, they have like, I think the space of like a sheet of paper, of notebook paper. There's nothing free about it.
Yeah. The next thing you might hear is like, my farmer loves the animals. Yeah. So, I mean, yes, farmers can feel genuine care and affection for their animals, and I'm sure a lot of them do. But the ethical question comes in when you consider what happens when the animal's interests conflict with the farm's economic needs. Like, the farmers aren't raising the animals because they care for them.
Right.
They're raising them to make money because a farm is a profitable business.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's an inherent conflict there.
Yeah. It's like you can treat the animals well, but you always intended to slaughter them.
Right.
Or you always intended there to be an end of lifespan. Like they're always giving you something, you know? It's like that part in Harry Potter.
Which part?
Where, spoiler alert, Dumbledore dies.
Oh, no.
But there's that part where they go back to the pensive, or what is it called?
I think that is what it's called.
Yeah, so the little like water well thing where you see memories, and he's looking at Snape's memories, and Snape is talking to Dumbledore, and Snape is basically like, oh, this whole time you've been being nice to Harry Potter, you were just like setting him up to be a lamb for slaughter.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, Dumbledore cared for him, but he also cared about like, what could Harry do to end Voldemort, right?
Yeah.
And then there's my favorite line when he says that he still has always cared for Lily, and then I sob for 5 hours and forget the rest of the movies.
Yeah, it's just like that.
It's just like that.
The next thing you might hear but vegan food also causes crop deaths.
Yeah, I feel like this one's just so disingenuous. It's just like a not good faith question.
Yeah.
Because like, yes, we're like living in a capitalistic society. There is no food that you can eat that there isn't harm somewhere, right?
Right.
That doesn't mean we shouldn't reduce it where we can. And I don't think veganism claims to be perfect, right?
Right. And again, we've talked about this before, and you can find this if you research it for about 5 minutes. But vegans, technically, per person, cause fewer crop deaths because a lot of the crop deaths come from growing crops to feed to animals.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a different topic, but, that is another reason why these arguments don't really land.
Yeah, the lower you are in the food system, the less harm you're causing, right? Yeah. Like, if you're eating at the very top of the food chain with the lion, like, you're causing more deaths overall because you're having to, like, you have that whole gap, right? But, like, if you're eating down here at the bottom with the cow, we're just eating, like, vegetables and shit.
Yeah.
It's less. And there's crop deaths, but like that's more around like how are crops being farmed.
Right.
Not really like a vegan specific thing, right?
Right.
If your issue is with crop deaths, you should be vegan and also go chase the crop death thing and try to change the farming practices.
Yeah. And then the last question is like, so was being vegetarian pointless?
Of course not. It reduced your participation in the meat production, and like it does reflect a real ethical commitment.
Yeah.
And I would say that a lot of times, like, being vegetarian is the first step to veganism.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's still a significant reduction in animal harm compared to an omnivore diet. So
you should be proud that you were vegetarian, and you should be even more proud if you decide to take that next step. You know, like if you decide that, hey, I've always been an ethical vegetarian.
Yeah.
And now that I'm learning these things, like, vegetarian doesn't go far enough for me.
Yeah. So I will say we're sorry if we have caused an ethical crisis in any ethical vegetarians listening that we're not aware of the things we've talked about.
Yeah, and if you need to talk about it, like, let me know. Because I had that, and it feels real bad for, like, a while.
So what can you do if you're a vegetarian who just had an aha moment or an existential dread moment? What can you do?
Yeah, I mean, like, the first thing is give up dairy. There's lots of easy dairy replacements. If you're just trying to replace dairy milk, I personally like soy milk.
Yeah.
But there's also, like,
oat milk is good.
Oat milk's good. Almond milk is good.
Yeah.
Soy milk is the higher protein one, so that's what we usually choose. It's almost like a 1-for-1 replacement.
Yeah. I feel like oat milk, because of the flavor, is a little better transition from dairy milk.
Yeah.
It's more similar, but I ended up liking soy milk better.
I agree with that. Yeah, but, like, yogurt, if you're, like, a big yogurt person, lots of good plant-based yogurts. There's not as many good plant-based Greek yogurts, but, I mean, you can't have it all. You can make your own shit.
Yeah. There's also some various versions of vegan cheese. They can be cashew-based, tofu-based. Nutritional yeast can kind of give you, like, a cheesy flavor. And then, like, the commercial vegan cheeses you'll find at the grocery store.
Lots of good, I mean, commercial vegan cheeses have come a long way.
Oh, yeah.
I really like, if you're looking for vegan cheese recommendations, we'll just give you a few. But I like Veal Life for, like, melting on top of stuff.
Yeah.
Specifically, like, the shreds. Like, the Veal Life shreds are really good.
I feel like they've even gotten better in the last few years. Like, even when I first went vegan, I was like, oh, these cheeses. And maybe that's just because I was used to the taste of it.
It could be, yeah.
But I was like, oh, these are, like, sticky and cheesy. But I don't really, the ones we have now, I don't really get a lot of the sticky ones anymore.
I think it's also because of how we use it.
Yeah.
I won't use it on pizza.
Yeah, that could be, yeah. Anyway, learning to use the cheeses in the appropriate way is also.
But, like, Daiya has gotten pretty decent, too, for, like, a shredded cheese. But then you have, like, some nicer quality cheeses of, like, Nuts for Cheese, Cheese and Thank You. Rebel cheese is really good. Peaceful Rebel cheese is really good. Some, like, more artisanal cheeses. And then, if you're just trying to, like, create a cheesy flavor, nutritional yeast is good. You can use umami powder for, like, that, like, umami flavor. Lactic acid will kind of give it that sharpness.
Yeah.
And then you can use either cashew or tofu as, like, a base if you're making a sauce or something.
And you've got several cheese recipes on your website.
Yeah. And lots of other people have good ones, too. I will say cheese was, like, a hard one for me. And I've heard a lot of people say, just take a month off of cheese in general. Don't even try vegan cheese until you've had a month away from dairy.
Yeah.
I didn't do that, and I didn't really have a problem with it, but I've heard it helps a lot of people. So if you're trying vegan cheese right after you just ate a bunch of dairy cheese and it's just not hitting right and it's grossing you out, just take a month off. Come back to it. Maybe splurge on some really high quality vegan cheeses like a Rebel cheese. Just so that you know it can be done, you know?
There are a lot of good plant-based butters out there. Country Crock has some new ones, like avocado oil-based, and I can never remember what the other one is. But there are two options for Country Crock. And there's also things like Earth Balance has really good butter. There were some other brands we used before, a lot harder to find in stores now, so it seems like it's typically like Country Crock or Earth Balance these days.
Yeah, I think for me, butter was like the easiest replacement.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can't even really tell the difference.
No, okay.
My parents actually switched, and they're not vegan, vegetarian, or anything.
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe it's not butter. It's actually vegan.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you're just trying to do like a creamy sauce, silken tofu or cashews are good for that. Ice cream, there's a shit ton of dairy-free ice cream that's really good.
I can't tell the difference on those. I love the dairy-free ice cream just as much as I always liked ice cream.
Yeah, it's a real problem.
Yeah.
It's actually a real problem that they're so good.
I wish vegan ice cream sucked.
And then for like your eggs, now people will immediately tell you tofu scramble.
Yeah.
And I think tofu scramble is a good egg replacement, especially if you use Culling which is like a sulfur black salt that gives it that eggy flavor. But actually, Just Egg, it's expensive, but it tastes almost the same as scrambled eggs for me.
Just Egg is like egg.
Yeah, no.
I feel like in a blind test, nobody would tell the difference.
No, it's very, very, very similar in taste and texture. And they also make the like Just Egg patties. They're great. Like, I think it's also like, I think that was one of the first things that I started substituting in because I used to eat a lot of eggs. It's just like an easy substitute, especially if you can afford it. Not a big deal. If you're baking, flax is a good one.
Yeah, the flax egg.
Yeah. Or pumpkin puree or applesauce.
Mm-hmm.
If you need like an egg white replacement, aquafaba, which is just chickpea water. Or even they make a new vegan egg white protein powder, which is really good and I think works pretty much almost 1-for-1 for like egg whites.
Yeah. There's also that Bob's Red Mill product that's just called Egg Replacer. Is that any good?
I have used it and I never like it as much as the flax.
Yeah, the flax is so simple.
Yeah, or pumpkin puree is almost always my go-to, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think just because I like pumpkin things. So, and it doesn't add much flavor. It just like makes things nice and moist and stuff. It works similar to it. Also, a blended silken tofu is a great egg replacement.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're just looking for like an egg replacement, my go-to is Just Egg.
Yeah.
I think they've made a couple new ones, but I haven't been able to try any of those. We just only seem to have Just Egg in our grocery store.
Yeah, but good enough for me when we do need it. So
yeah, and I will say, like, if you're going from vegetarian to vegan, something you might not think about is where you're getting protein.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize how heavily I was actually relying on dairy and eggs for my protein until I went to veganism. But it can be kind of a shocker of like, what do I eat? So like some of our favorite protein sources are like tofu, TVP, vital wheat gluten or seitan.
Yeah.
Peanut flour is a good one. Lentils, beans, red lentil pasta. What else? Nutritional yeast is good.
Like carb control tortillas. Because like we don't control our carbs. Like we don't care about keto or anything, but the keto tortillas are high protein.
Yeah.
And high
fiber.
Yeah.
Yeah, so lots of good protein sources. Also, like if you're looking for protein sources, I have, we'll link that in the show notes, but I have a database that's sortable by protein percentage and cost. So you can find some good protein options. And then I would say if you're just buying products in general at stores and you haven't bought vegan before, be on the lookout for things that say, obviously, milk, whey, casein, caseinate, butter, fat, milk powder, egg, albumin, mayonnaise, some glazes, gelatin.
Oh, the confectioner's
glaze.
The
confectioner's glaze.
Yeah. Also, there's some weird ones like carmine, or I think it's pronounced cochineal, and then also shellac, which is like in lemon heads. It's on some candy and it makes it shiny.
I think it's bugs.
Yeah, ground up bugs.
Yeah.
Which is funny. By the way, I just saw a news thing the other day. Apparently, in some of the political races or whatever, they're calling people bug-eating vegans.
Vegans don't eat bugs. What do you mean?
Yeah. So anyway.
Also, what the fuck?
Also, what the fuck? So yeah, in closing, most vegetarians stop eating meat for ethical reasons. But this episode isn't meant to shame or humiliate the vegetarians, obviously, since you were a vegetarian for a long time.
Yeah.
You have a special perspective on this, and you don't hate on them. But this also would just help to bring them up to speed on the kind of hidden cost of eggs and dairy that are very similar to the cost of the meat industry.
Yeah.
Especially from an ethical perspective. It's very similar.
They're basically the same. It's, the dairy industry is just basically the meat industry hiding in cheese coating.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like it.
Not the best soundbite. We'll go with it, though.
I like it. So once we know that slaughter and suffering is required still for dairy and eggs, we all get to ask ourselves if vegetarianism is far enough for us individually, or if veganism aligns with our values a little better. And again, I think if you're like an ethical vegetarian and then you learn these things, you're probably in like a little bit of a crisis situation where you have to figure out what your ethics are.
No, I know. Yeah. Been through it.
Yeah.
If you're a vegetarian and you want to go plant-based or vegan and need some extra support, or you just have some questions, feel free to message us. Like, I have personally been through this. I still deal with the guilt of not knowing things for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
You could also join our Discord because we have some newer vegans in our Discord, and we definitely help you through any questions you have or any support you need.
Yeah, we got the Discord server down in the show notes. I think we're coming up on like 300 people in there now. It's very active. It's good.
Super nice people. We have like the
space.
nicest people.
Yeah. I think it's a great place for a new vegan to come and talk, or even a vegetarian that's got more questions, if you don't want to get lambasted on the vegan subreddit.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's it for the main segment. Let's get into the bite-sized coaching real quick. So I'm a personal trainer, and I do Ask Me Anythings on Reddit once a month or so, where I just go in and say, hey, I'm a personal trainer, ask me anything. And people ask questions about their training or like nutrition or veganism stuff in specific. So I want to share one of those questions with you here. And you get to read the question.
I'm so glad you finally remembered. I do get to read the question. Okay, here's the question. When is the best time to consume protein when it comes to a workout? Before? After? And within what time period?
Yeah. So this is not as important as we used to think it is. There's something called the anabolic window, to use a technical term, which originally people thought that it was like a 1 to 2 hour window after a workout where you needed to get in protein. And I thought you needed to also get that with carbohydrates to like help the protein uptake. And if you didn't, it was like a wasted workout session almost. Like that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but that's basically the line of thinking. A lot of people still have it, but like scientifically in the studies, we found that that's not as important now. So as long as you have some protein within a few hours, either before or after your workout, I wouldn't worry too much about the timing, as long as you're hitting your total daily protein target. And that would ideally be at least 1.6 grams per kilogram of lean body mass, which is somewhere like 0.75 grams per pound.
Of lean
body mass. Or if you're trying to lose weight, you can just use your goal body weight. That's usually way simpler than lean body mass. Typically, you'll automatically get that meal within a couple hours before or after if you're just like eating 2 to 3 meals a day. Like that's just how time works. Right? So, but I will
What
say,
if you're a one-a-dayer?
Yeah, if you're a one-a-dayer, I would probably try to make that one a day right after your workout. Yeah. If you're working out fasted first thing in the morning, also, I probably would try to get some protein in within an hour or so of the workout. But I would imagine you're probably already doing that. If you're working out first thing in the morning, you're going to be hungry. You're surely eating pretty shortly after your workout.
I would think so.
Yeah. But it's not the end of the world if you can't. I would just hit the total daily protein target. As long as you're eating, again, like if you're like, I would say like worst case scenario would be you work out first thing in the morning fasted and then you eat 1 meal a day at dinner. That's probably not ideal.
You're going to be so hungry.
I would adjust that a little bit. But yeah, for the way most people eat, you don't really have to think about it too much. All right.
Is that OMAD?
Yeah, OMAD. OMAD, 1 meal a day. That's like
I would be OMAD.
Yeah, some people do intermittent fasting with 1 meal a day. So it's, not my kind of thing. Which is interesting because like intermittent fasting is typically used, the thing it's most effective for is calorie control. But sometimes people who do OMAD still end up eating more calories because they're starving by the time the meal comes around. So,
yeah.
And they're like, okay, I'll get a cheeseburger and ice cream and french fries.
Yeah, they get
1 meal a day.
120% of their calories before they're satiated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So anyway. Yeah. I think that's it for this week. If you could rate and review the podcast, that would really help us out. Also, if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, you can leave us a comment and we'll reply to you. Or maybe even if you have a question, we can mention it on the podcast here. And then you can also check out the show notes for ways to see what we're working on or get in touch with us. We have our websites and social media down there. You can reach out or just read our blogs, look up the recipes on the Protein Deficient Vegan site if you need some of those. And then also, we'd love it if you would join the Deficient Vegans Discord server. You can come in and chat with us and our 300 closest friends.
Seriously, though.
Yeah, that's a great time. We are starting the second book in the book club here pretty soon. That's going to be The Impactful Vegan by Robert Cheek. And then we have a bonus fall round with a book called Tender is the Flesh.
It was voted on and decided upon.
Yeah, so we'll be reading that kind of around Halloween, spooky season.
People are very excited. I am very excited. I'm looking at the book right now.
All right, I think that's it. You want to say bye?
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.